Okay, and here we go. Mike, thank you so much for joining me on fraud busting today.
Absolutely.
Well, now, you're a pretty interesting fellow, and someone I really don't know a whole lot about, but I want to know a whole lot about. So, tell me, or just tell us just a little snippet of what you're up to, how we ended up getting in touch, like stuff like that.
Okay, sure. First of all, I started out in the military and left the military and started a group called Anonymous. Got into a little bit of trouble with the FBI, worked for them for a little bit as a CI. And then I took what I did and I learned and started helping kids make better cyber decisions and help people protect themselves on the internet.
Okay, so let's back up.
Right now,
there's a lot there that we need to unpack. And then we'll get into what's going on now. So what's going?
Sure.
What now? You joined the military. How old were you? What was your job? What branch? Tell us all that.
Sure. I was 18 in my first enlistment during the first Iraq War. I served another term right after 9/11. I re-enlisted on 9/11 as a cryptologist in the Navy.
Oh.
And I served the Joint Force Intelligence Command in Virginia, doing all kinds of crypto stuff. And I got out around 2003. And then that's when we started building up Anonymous. It was a small idea.
So let's talk about that. So so you built this group Anonymous, which says a lot about what they're up to. So what specifically can you say what you all were doing? Like how'd you end up on the bad side of the law?
I wasn't really happy with what I saw in the military. The intelligence pictures that we were getting was quite different from what was being portrayed to the public.
Oh.
A lot of stuff I didn't agree with, and just a really distaste for the federal government at the time.
Okay.
And so we started an idea the ideology behind the original Anonymous group was more of leveling the playing field and also exposing corruption. And that's what we did. And sometimes it was taken a little bit too far. The problems you run into with a group like that is it's very disparate, and sometimes people work on their own, but under the auspice of Anonymous. And some bad things were carried out. And of course, the people that were at the core, Traci Brown, myself, a handful of other people, were chased down by the FBI.
Oh wow! Now, what exactly did you all do? Let's throw the covers off and quit calling it bad stuff and things like that. Like, what happened?
Well, I can go into some of it.
Okay.
Some of it I can't talk about, but it started off with the Church of Scientology.
Okay.
We went after the Church of Scientology to face the website because of some of their practices and the way they treated people. We also attacked FBI, CIA. Occupy Wall Street was another big one. I was actually working both sides of the fence during Occupy Wall Street. I was working for a bank, and at night I was also attacking the same bank.
Oh man! So were you getting money out? Were you just putting your message on the site? No. Like what happened?
Most of it was denial of service. So we had a couple tools that we created called LOIC and HOIC. Mm-hmm. And they're a spinoff from, the names come from a game. And basically it was low orbit ion cannon. So we distributed these tools to masses. And basically they were denial of service tools. So we bring down websites, cause havoc within the banking systems, stuff like that. Until people, would recognize, the corruption and acknowledge it. There's a lot of defacements that went on. Westboro Baptist Church, I don't know if you remember that or not. They had a really big problem with homosexuality, and they were very verbal about it. And they protested it, and we took down their website, actually live during a TV interview.
Oh, wow.
It's pretty interesting. So there's the funny thing about Anonymous was we had a lot of groups that splintered off of Anonymous. So you have LulzSec and several other groups that carried out their own operations as well. But I didn't really get into that end of it. I stayed mostly within the Anonymous core. And we did do some things like doxing people and exposing people. We took down several thousand ISIS profiles on social media. We caught tons of pedophiles and turned them in. We actually got reprimanded for reporting some of the pedophiles because we were interfering with police investigations.
Oh, wow.
Even though we had all the data and we turned it over, the police didn't want us messing with it. So from 2003 to 2016, the FBI and the Secret Service and the U.S. Attorney's Office built a profile and collected data on what I was doing. 2016, it came to a head, and we had a sit-down meeting, and I ended up becoming a CI for him for a year.
And a CI is?
Confidential informant.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But I had a really good lawyer, and the way that we worked it was I didn't do anything domestic. It was all foreign intelligence, mostly on Eastern Bloc hacking groups. So to put things in perspective, it was 2016, so the election was going on. So you can kind of put two and two together as to what I was doing. I can't go into too much of that without probably landing myself in jail. But
right, yeah, no, me too. Neither of us needs to go to jail here. So okay. So let me summarize this here. So you have your group, and you guys are like, you know what you're doing. You're attacking people that you don't agree with on one level or another. Is that kind of the basis of it?
100%.
Yeah. Okay. And so, is there gain in this, or is it just because you can?
It's because we can.
Okay.
Now, there were people in the group that did go after financial gain, but that was not the ideology that we started with. And if you look at Anonymous, sort of around the Michael Brown, St. Louis riots,
right,
you can see traces of Anonymous guys that were setting fire to buildings and things, doing kinetic things, physical stuff. And that's not the ideology we started with. A lot of people left the group because of that twist in ideology. We didn't agree with it.
So then, how did the FBI find you? Because you kind of left a gap in there. You're like, all of a sudden it just came to a head. Like, like, for one, where are you? Are you in a basement somewhere with a hoodie on? Like, how does this really happen? And how do they find you?
So I maintained a full-time job the entire time, working for large corporations, working for startup companies. And one day they showed up at the office I was working at and took me to lunch. I had started a group called DC 972, which is a DEF CON group.
Okay.
And they showed up at the meeting and was very interested in some of the stuff that I was talking about regarding botnets and denial of service. And it kind of grew from there. And they picked me up one day from work to take me to lunch and started asking me questions about specific individuals within Anonymous. And of course, I didn't give them any information, but they were trying to use us against each other. Some of those guys did get arrested. Some of those guys did do time. I'm not really sure why they let me go from that point on and just kind of tailed me. But the surveillance was off and on, like I said, from 2003 all the way to 2016.
Wow.
And they would show up at the most inopportune times, sit outside my house. They would always make themselves apparent that they were there. So I was constantly looking over my shoulder, and it was really a stressful time. I didn't make things easy on myself by, working a full-time job and doing what I was doing, because I knew that they were right there. I knew that I would eventually get caught. I fully expected to be arrested. When I wasn't, I was really surprised and kind of relieved. But the harassment didn't stop there. I lost access to get back into the United States when I was in Europe. I lost any capability of having a bank account.
Okay, hang on, back up. Let's talk about these things here.
Sure.
So why did you go to Europe? And then because you told me already that you didn't have a passport or they took it from you or something. Like, how'd you end up in Europe? Where?
So I was working for a company, and I was going back and forth between Houston and Scotland,
Okay.
doing legit work.
Mm-hmm.
At this time, this is a couple years ago, and everything I was doing was above the board. I haven't broken any laws in a very long time. I was traveling back and forth, and the last time I tried to go home was during Black Hat of last year.
Okay. And Black Hat is a conference.
Yeah,
and they have like their international ones, and then isn't there one in Vegas or something?
There's one in Vegas. That's the main one. They have Black Hat Federal in DC. They have Black Hat Europe, Black Hat Asia.
Okay.
There's several of them. But I tried to go back to Black Hat, and I stayed at a hotel at Gatwick Airport in London. And I had a seizure, was taken to the hospital in the ambulance. They locked up the hotel room. I have a tendency to hide my passport. It's just out of habit.
Okay.
So I put it under the bed between two boards that I knew nobody would go looking after. Mm-hmm. After I got out of the hospital, we went back to retrieve our stuff. They unlocked the room. Everything was there except for my passport.
Really? Oh yeah. My gosh. Wow.
So I went to the U.S. Embassy in London and tried to get an emergency passport and a replacement passport. I paid my 125 pounds, took the photos, and they told me that my passport had been revoked. They were really, helpful when it came to filing for a lost or stolen passport. But as far as like helping me get a new one, there was no help at all. So I was basically stranded in Europe.
For how long?
For almost 2 years.
Wow. And so how did that work? Because you had a legit job that you were there for, right? So did you just call them and were like, hey?
I unfortunately lost that job because I couldn't go back to the States. And I ended up, staying with friends, staying with a girlfriend, her family. It was really difficult. I mean, technically I was homeless in London for 2 years.
Yeah.
Fortunately, but unfortunately, I got sick not too long ago and got diagnosed with epilepsy.
Oh, wow.
So at that point, the hospital that I was in London contacted the UK consulate, who then contacted the US consulate. And it's technically illegal in the UK to be homeless and have epilepsy.
Really?
So the US was kind of forced to let me back in. So they gave me a provisional passport that was only good for like a couple days, mm-hmm. and allowed me back into the country. Gave me 60 pounds travel money. And it was kind of funny because when I went to London Heathrow, everything was set up. I had my ticket, everything. I get to the line to get in, to check in, and I was denied. I thought, the UK and US consulate, I have the paperwork right here. Mm-hmm. And they had to call DHS and clear me through DHS before I could even go through TSA. And that's very minor compared to what I've been through as far as the harassment. Even though I'm above board now and I don't have any charges over my head, mm-hmm. They make life very hard. I can't get a driver's license. I can't get another passport. I can't get a bank account.
So you just stuffing cash under your mattress? Like, how do you operate?
I have a way of doing it. There's ways online online bank accounts that help me. I don't want to go into too much detail.
Okay, yeah. Okay, we don't need to do it.
I'd like to survive for a while.
All right, we don't want to out you too much. So while you're over there in Europe, like, we know you're struggling for somewhere to live. Are you still doing your like shutting down websites, or like how are you getting money? Do you ever cross the line into like out and out financial fraud, or what? How does you never do it?
2016 was the last of my illegal activity.
Uh-huh.
I haven't done anything illegal since then. What I did was I worked with the London Met Police in their cyber prevent program,
Hmm.
and I became a public speaker. And it got to the point where I was being paid to do public speaking at
Yeah.
different events and conferences. And so that helped me survive. The people in Europe, I can't say enough about. Like, they were fantastic. Um, they recognized the fact that my background was useful to help stop fraud, to help stop kids from making wrong decisions.
Hmm.
And their program is cutting edge, something we don't have in the United States. They actually give kids a second chance, and people like me a second chance. Um, and I helped in that program, and it helped me get my name out there. And I toured all through the UK. I spoke in Egypt remotely. Um, I did a lot of public speaking,
Hmm.
and I worked with those kids a lot. And it was great. It helped me survive. It put money in my pocket. Um, and my family over there really helped. My girlfriend and her family really took care of me
Wow.
because they knew my situation.
Yeah. So then I have so many questions. So okay, let's talk about, okay, what are you doing now? Because you have like you've kind of left the bad behind, and you're on a good track. Like you're speaking, you're helping kids. Like what do you do all day now?
Right now, since I've been back to the States, I've just been recuperating. I fought COVID off twice. I had the European strain and the American strain.
Oh man.
Was hospitalized for a while. Um, so I'm recuperating in the mountains in Alabama in a remote location. Um, I'm still doing speaking. I haven't done anything lately, but I'm going to start picking that back up, and I'm going to start doing some freelance stuff,
Mhm.
pen testing, stuff like that.
Yeah. Now,
Um,
pen testing for people who are listening is it's basically breaking into companies, but they pay you to do it, right?
exactly.
Yeah. Oh, you'd be
I've
perfect at
done
that.
I've done it for going on 20 years now.
Mhm.
I was doing that when I was in Anonymous. That was my legit job. I've always been a pen tester and a red teamer. A red teamer basically modeled adversaries and identified risks within organizations and modeled what those adversaries would do to that company and
Mhm.
carried that out.
Right.
So
Because it's
everything
pretty
now is,
easy. It's pretty easy to break in. I mean, from what I'm hearing,
yeah,
um, like we all have so many vulnerabilities that
right.
so okay. So what else are you doing?
Building companies, looking at starting some companies south of the border, um, doing some stuff here, just continuing what I'm doing from the UK,
Hmm.
but doing it from here instead of London. And I'm trying to get everything back in order, trying to get my passport back, trying to get cleared from DHS and from the banking systems. I don't know how much work that's going to take. I've contacted some senators and some congressmen to help me out.
Oh wow.
Um, because I look at it this way, and this is my distaste for the federal government, is the fact that I served the country and defend the country during 2 wars,
Hmm.
and I'm treated like an enemy of the state. And I understand the stuff that I did was wrong, but I've helped them out, and it's time to bury that hatchet and let me live like a normal human being instead of imprisoned in my own house.
Right, right. Now let's talk about this. I think you are the right guy to talk about this with. 2020 election. Who's hacking us? Because and how are they doing it? I know you
So
know. I know you know this, Mike.
without going into too much detail, I worked for the FBI as a CIA during the 2016 election.
Mhm.
Um, I'll just say this: things are not always as they appear. Um,
Okay.
the Republicans and the Democrats obviously don't like each other.
Right.
Um, and the FBI probe into misconduct, the Comey report. Um, I'll just say this: the federal government and the Department of Justice is not always as clean and white as they seem.
Hmm.
Um, And there are some underhanded things that go on within the federal government.
Oh, sure.
And of course, they've got to find a scapegoat.
Mm-hmm.
That's the government's main function when it comes to pinning crimes or trying to find someone responsible. If they're responsible, they'll usually point somebody out or a group out externally and put the blame on them. I got some insight into what was going on during elections in 2016, and I'll just say that things are not always what they seem.
Okay, so I get that you can't say a lot. So then, do you think, knowing what you know, that the rightful people end up in office?
No, absolutely not.
Okay, all right. Now, is there anything that we regular citizens on the street can do to have our vote count a little bit more than maybe not at all?
So I'm kind of jaded when it comes to voting. I don't vote.
Can you vote now? Can you?
I'm not even sure. I haven't tried. But the reason why I don't vote is because my view is that government is one corporation. The right and the left, it appears to be a solid division. But when it comes down to it, the lobbyists, the constituents, they're the ones who choose. Money is what drives business, and government's a business. So if people think that their vote really counts, I would say maybe take a look at how the elections and how voting is really set up. The people can vote a certain way within, let's say, a red state, right? But if the Electoral College doesn't agree with that vote, the Electoral College does not have to vote with the populace.
Oh, exactly. That's totally true.
So, I think, our founding fathers, I'm a Freemason as well. So I'm a big constitutionalist, and I believe in the way that the government was built back during, the founding fathers' time. And they said that when government gets too large, it's the people's responsibility to rein it back in and to take it over. If the government becomes corrupt, it's the people's responsibility to fix it. And I think what we're seeing, especially during the pandemic and during the riots, is that people are starting to wake up. They're starting to see that the government has gotten too large and overbearing. And I think eventually we're going to come to a point where it may not be a civil war in the traditional sense of North versus South, but I think it'll be the people versus the federal government. I think we're already seeing that. And it's just going to take one trigger event to spur a wider reaction. But people are starting to wake up a little bit.
Wow. Now, is there anything we can do as far as, like, should we go vote in person? Should we take our mail-in ballot and drop it in the box ourselves at the voting place? Like, what is there anything, or is this all, in your experience, kind of out of our hands? There's nothing we can do.
It's a patriotic duty to vote. I don't do it because I don't agree with the federal government, but they do run the country. If you're a voter, vote, but vote in person. Now, will election fraud still happen? Absolutely. Ballots ending up in rivers, dead people voting 3 or 4 times. Our system of government is beyond corrupt, and we see it every day. And I don't know if there's a way to fix that. I sat in London and watched the pandemic break out, and I watched the riots break out. And I thought, how sad, like our government has just fallen apart, and, the people are left powerless. But I would say, do your patriotic duty and vote if that's the type of person you are. Because that's the backbone of what our country is supposed to be. Government by the people, for the people. Unfortunately, once it gets to the federal level, it's not for the people. But hopefully, if people do their patriotic duty and stand up for what they believe in, hopefully things will change. It'll be painful because change is painful.
Yeah.
But if people pursue it, I think, if we band together, we can make things change.
Got it. Okay. So Um, I ask all my guests this. What's the craziest case you've worked on that you can talk about?
Craziest case. Well, I can say that when I was in the military, I worked on a few cases of some very sketchy behavior from brass.
Wait, from who now?
Brass, officers.
Oh, officers, brass. Okay, got it.
Some stuff that they were doing on Craigslist and stuff like that. I saw some really crazy stuff.
Like selling
Yeah.
guns and stuff. Oh wow, okay.
No, like selling themselves.
Selling themselves.
Stuff
Oh,
like
shoot. Okay.
I saw some crazy stuff in the military. And then when I was working for the FBI, I won't go into too much detail, but it was very shocking to see really the truth behind what actually goes on and how the FBI operates, and how they used me as an informant was really shocking. And people like me who have been informants before know what I'm talking about. The constant OIAs, which is otherwise illegal activity forms that I had to sign, basically said it's okay to break the law if we tell you to, but if you go outside that scope, then we'll convict you.
Oh boy.
And I thought, this is really deranged that, you're having me break the law and do the things that I did while I was an anonymous, and you're sanctioning me to do it legally, but yet you came after me. So it didn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Right.
I have a little touch of Asperger's, so a lot of like social stuff doesn't make sense. And the way they treated me was very odd. Like I didn't understand it. Every time that I signed paperwork, I never signed it with my name. They gave me a name to sign it with.
Really?
Yeah, everything was cash. There was no checks. There was no traceable accounts. It was kind of scary, actually. But I was just glad to get through it. I had a really great lawyer, David Adler. He was ex-CIA. And he ended up getting a guy out of prison that was working for the CIA. They got busted for arms dealing, and the CIA turned their back on him. And he ended up doing some time in prison, and my lawyer got him out.
Wow.
He used to have access to the documents. But that's how the federal government works. They use people, and when they don't need you, they throw you away.
Wow. Okay. So you're not really working for the government anymore. Is that true? No. And so you're working like speaking, and how are you helping kids and people now? Let's get into that.
So the kids that I worked with in London were fantastic. The cyber prevention program identified potential cyber criminals within an age group that ranged anywhere from 11 to like 18. And they would bring them in and do an intervention workshop, them and their parents. I would speak to their parents, tell them my story, kind of tell them what to look for, how to connect with their kids, because most of them that I dealt with were on the spectrum. So there's unique issues there and things that the parents kind of needed to know. And what I found was there's a huge gap between the parents and the kids as far as communication goes and understanding. And a lot of the parents didn't understand technology. So I worked with them a little bit. And then the kids, I tried to connect with them. And it was really easy to connect with them because they were on my level. A lot of them didn't know that they were breaking the law. The Computer Abuse Act in the UK is not really delivered to kids. It's a law, but it's never explained. I went and spoke at university, and I was talking about the Computer Abuse Act in the UK, and the lecturer that brought me in to speak to the school turned around and looked at me. He said, "What is that?" I was shocked. I was like, "You teach cybersecurity at a university level and you don't know what the Computer Abuse Act is?" So that's the type of things that I do is I help people understand the law. I help kids, identify that they are talented and use that talent to help and to build a career rather than end up in my position.
Wow. So then, Keep going. And I have a question after that.
So it really helped me like connect with myself and understand the psychology behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of understand like the reasons why I did what I did, and why I do certain things. Because I really had to dive into that psychology part of it to really understand some of the other people I was dealing with.
So what do you think? Why did you do it? Just, I mean, besides that you could, what do you think? Like,
A lot of it has to do with control.
uh-huh.
As a kid, I didn't have much control. I came from a family that was very strict. My dad was kind of absent. So I was very like to myself,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't have much guidance when it came to that stuff. And it didn't matter what I did, everything was wrong. And their idea of parenting was throw, electronics kit or a computer at me, and that would keep me entertained.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I did. So that type of psychology, it builds off of that need for control, and also, financial part plays a part once you get older, and also just the fact that you can do what you do. I tell kids, especially the younger ones, it's like being a magician. You can do things that other people can't do. It's like a superpower.
Mm-hmm.
But with that superpower comes responsibility. And that's one thing I didn't understand as a kid, was the things that I could do could cause damage. I think the first place that I attacked and got caught was the Nuclear Subcommittee BBS. And I received a letter of warning from, the government saying, look, don't do it again.
Uh-huh.
So at that point, I knew I had that need for control. And I had a talent that I didn't know it was a talent. I just thought it was a skill. But, I try to explain to kids it is a talent. And it's the next step in human evolution, I believe, is the position they're in.
Right.
So
then what, let's say there's a parent listening right now with a kid who is, I don't know, maybe like you said, a touch of Asperger's, or just really good at computers. Maybe you don't know exactly what they're doing. What are the resources out there to turn them in a good direction versus get into trouble?
I would tell the parent, this is what I tell parents all the time. Learn technology. Get involved with what your kids are doing. If your kids are gaming, if they're playing Fortnite or if they're playing Minecraft, play with them. Get online with them, monitor what they're doing, because those are the grounds where organized crime recruit kids and groom them. We've seen it over and over again. White supremacist groups recruiting kids from Fortnite, pedophiles doing the same thing. Organized crime groups for credit carding and stuff like that will start off having kids mod characters or mod maps, and it grows from that to attacking databases.
Mm-hmm.
So really get involved with what your kids are doing. Understand, connect with them, understand technology. And I know they're kids' games, but if you really want to be a part of your kids' life and really be active, you have to get involved. Because that's the future, and those kids are already there, and they're going to leave you behind. And if they leave you behind, you will have no idea what they're doing.
Right. Wow. Now, are there any like groups, resources for this, or is it just get involved, figure it out? And
So the UK, the Met Police got funding for a mentor program, and that was kind of what I started help building when I was there. I hope and pray that they continue doing that. In the U.S., I don't know of anything like that. U.S. is very hands-off when it comes to cybercrime, which I don't understand. They're very great. They're very good at convicting people and imposing harsh sentences, but as far as like helping like the kids and like, making them choose a different path, it's not there. Connecting parents with those kids, just not there. But I'm always open to talking to parents or helping kids. So
wow. Now, I was going to ask you. So it's a perfect lead in. How can people get a hold of you? What's the easiest way to do that? Like if they want you to speak or maybe talk about how they can help their kid. Tell me about that.
Sure. I have a Twitter. It's at Stinger, STING 3R 2013. They can contact me there or on LinkedIn. And you have my LinkedIn.
Yep.
And I respond to everybody who contacts me. It doesn't matter, how many people contact me, everybody will get a response.
Wow, that's super cool. Well, Mike, thank you so much. I think you're just a wealth of knowledge and a little mysterious too. I think you're very intriguing. So thank you for coming on Fraud Busting.
Absolutely. I appreciate it.